Good morning, everyone. This is Chris around the ATL. It is Monday. It's a Monday morning. It's very cold. Pretty much probably anywhere that you live. Some places you have snow. Some places you have ice. And some places are just cold. So be careful. This is going to be a quick mobile version of Around the ATL. Due to circumstances beyond my control, wasn't able to put a show together like I had planned to during the weekend. So in this particular episode, I will be going over a couple of things, just in regards to sports in general. First things first, the Atlanta Falcons. Now, before I talk about the Falcons and their offseason thus far, what was the reason that they had to hire a coach immediately? You hire Matt Ryan, you do good there. You do good there. You clean house. You get rid of Rich McKay. You get rid of that dark shadow, that cloud that's been hovering over the franchise for 20 years of not winning, and he being behind that. Okay, the owner finally said, okay, I'm getting old. I need to try to win now. I guess I got to get rid of this person who don't know what they're doing, right? You get rid of coaches, whole 9 yards, right? You hire Matt Ryan. What was the immediate, need to hire a coach within days of that? Why not wait until the entire playoffs are over, the Super Bowl is over, and then interview those who may be interested and interview those who you are interested in, and then make a decision based off of that? I would like to know the science behind that, because as my co-host Jordan Jackson mentioned, Stefanski doesn't have a track record on the offensive side of the ball. Not really. Not if we're just going by actual history. And I did mention to him, I mentioned the fact that, he had a lot of quarterbacks under him for that time from 2019 approximately till now. And yeah, Baker had some good times there. And again, I mentioned, Baker had a playoff win, and everything. But there's times where, Baker wasn't that great too. You do a lot of interceptions, made a lot of bad decisions. And now after that, Baker's been great. But that wasn't with Stefanski though, right? So what is his track record to say he would be the man? Right? His influence, his way of doing things, right? I don't know. And then to bring in his offensive coordinator from the Browns, who also doesn't have a real track record, compared to someone like a Kubiak, who's front and center, who has a track record, right? Who is seen to align great with our chosen quarterback. Remember, they said, Penix is the guy. He is our quarterback, right? So once you make that move, you would think that beyond a shadow of a doubt, you would want to get someone who could help that quarterback, ensure that quarterback's success. Can't go backwards, right? You can't revert to non-success. We can't afford it. So why not just wait it out? I would like to know that. I know we're never going to get an answer, but I at least would like someone to ask the question and be like, hey, how come y'all just couldn't wait until, the playoffs were over? What was the hurry? Because that's what it seemed like. It was a hurry. And again, the other part of this is you hired a coach before the general manager. Now, another person that I know said, well, that's not going to be that much of an issue because of you having a figurehead there in Matt Ryan as the president of the team. So worst case scenario, he'll be able to be the check and balances of anything crazy going on. And I guess so. Because at a certain point, you just have to trust Matt. He's making the right decisions. I just think they could have waited. Man, my windshield is really dirty. I just think they could have waited. Now, everything else. They kept Jeff on the defensive side of the ball. I think that was a wise move in regards to continuity, because he was the one who put the Falcons in the position to not be bottom feeders of the NFL in regards to sacks again. Now, some of that is because of the people that were drafted. You gotta give the outgoing GM some credit as far as that goes, but the coaching part of it comes into play. Putting people in the best positions to succeed on a regular basis, that's coaching. Schemes, that's coaching. And we finally got somebody who could put it all together. Didn't help us in our wins and losses, though, because we couldn't score. But that's a whole nother thing in itself. And then also, we lost games because of bad coaching decisions. The head coach making poor decisions lost us several games. Keeping a field goal kicker who couldn't kick for a prolonged period of time lost us games. Lost us games the year before that, if people remember. So getting rid of the former head coach and just that staff altogether, for the most part, big deal. Now, I don't know what we're going to do in regards to special teams, where we continue to be one of the worst in special teams in the NFL. Seems like for decades now. Doesn't make any sense to be that poor at special teams. Right? The amount of yards that we give up on kickoffs, and the fact that we can't ever get a kickoff return that's decent. Again, being able to flip the field, all those things come into play on special teams, and we just don't have it. We've lost games because of that as well. Like, literally, we've lost games. Okay, coaching. So I don't know what we're going to do there. If we've already done it as of this video, I'm not sure. I gotta catch up. That's why this is this mobile version is not what I was going to do, but it is what it is. Who's the general manager? We've interviewed people, haven't made a decision on that yet. Will the general manager be down, so to speak, with the person that we hired as coach? Because that's not his coach. He's a general manager. Like, what power does a general manager feel they're going to have if everything's being put in place before he gets hired? Right? I don't think that's happened too many times in the NFL. And if it has, what's the success rate of that? Does he truly have higher firepower? Making adjustments when needed? I don't know. Again, that makes me uneasy just because of past experience, right? But like I said, it's a new day in Atlanta. We're seeing two teams in the Super Bowl. The Patriots going to yet another Super Bowl. Again, how many Super Bowl appearances do the Atlanta Falcons have? We got. And then we got the Seahawks, who are again in the Super Bowl for another opportunity. Again, how many times have the Falcons been in the Super Bowl? The Rams were almost in the Super Bowl. Bonehead decision, I believe, by their head coach going for it like he did. But hey, you're going to the Super Bowl, you got to do what you got to do. He made a decision. If it had worked, we wouldn't be saying nothing, but it didn't work. But there you got a 37-year-old quarterback who's almost gotten you back to he's won a Super Bowl with that team, almost got you back to the Super Bowl. Different people on that roster than the last few years, and somehow they're still competitive. And that's the confusion. It's like, how can the Falcons go so many decades and just never be competitive? And you have these other teams that year after year, no matter who's on the roster, what's going on, somehow they get shots at it. Again, nothing is guaranteed, but you just want a shot. You just want an opportunity. You can't ever win a Super Bowl not being in the playoffs. And the Atlanta Falcons have missed the playoffs every year since 2017. It would have been complete disaster to have brought Raheem Morris back based off of just that alone. But I believe he was going to do it. I believe he was going to do it. We won those last few games in a row. I was like, writing's on the wall. He won't have no choice but to bring him back now. We're winning these meaningless games now, which we should have been winning earlier in the season. We couldn't because of bonehead decisions. What are we going to do with Kirk Cousins and that contract? That's still up in the air. Are we going to keep him going into the beginning of next year until we know Penix is ready? Or do we cut the cord and roll the dice on someone else to start the season? Because again, next year we have to make the playoffs. So somehow or another, you got to ensure that however many games that Penix ends up missing, we got to go 500 at minimum. If he misses 4 games, we got to go 2-2. If he misses the first 6 games, we got to go 3-3. But preferably, we need to finish above 500, really. We got a defense that keep you in games. We were not scoring enough points to give us a chance to win. Could move the ball. So again, besides the quarterback, you got positions that we need to fill in. What are we going to do at wide receiver? Are we finally going to get somebody to play next to Drake London? Or we could talk about the cornerback position. Are we finally going to get someone to play after AJ? Who, remember, he ain't getting no younger. He ain't old, but he's been here a few years now. Why can't we find somebody? It always seems like we just kind of bite the bullet and we just settle. We never get the best. Right? How much better would our defense be if we had 2 quality cornerbacks? One on one side, one on the other side. Much harder to get some passes completed when you got 2 great cornerbacks, and then whatever happens with the nickel and safeties and stuff, whatever. Again, with the pressure that we're able to create now, you would think it'd make it easier for whoever's on the other side of the ball opposite of AJ. And again, as far as offense goes, why can't we find somebody to go over the top? How come we can't find somebody, a speedster, that can catch the ball so we can actually throw 40, 50 yards down the field on a regular basis instead of dinking and dunking all the time? Like, what's taking so long? You see what I'm saying? It's not like players weren't available. So those are things that I know I'm just looking at improvement on. Eventually, got to look at age on the O-line. Matthews, he's getting a little long in the teeth. He ain't going to be able to go too much longer, right? So you got to look at replacing him eventually. Your O-line has to be basically dominant now, because you can't afford to have Penix get hit ever again. Can you? I don't think so. So whatever they got to do, they got to do it big. We can't have a small O-line. We have a decent O-line, but it needs to get bigger. It needs to get hefty. It needs to get strong, So those are just some Falcons points there. I just wanted to talk about a little bit. Now, Andruw Jones, Atlanta Braves, finally, after all these years, finally gets inducted into the Hall of Fame. Really curious on the why it took so long and why now. Because it's like at a certain point you just gotta let it go. It ain't gonna happen. Right? But finally it did. He is very well deserving. One of the best center fielders the game has ever seen. I don't think anybody can argue that. Like, for anybody to even really think about arguing that, they're crazy. And it's not just the fact that he has 10 gold gloves. It's besides that. Because sometimes I think the gold glove thing, or even, not the silver slugger. You got to hit something to get the silver slugger. But the gold glove, I think sometimes that's arbitrary. Sometimes I don't think, why is he stopping at a green light? But in Andruw Jones' case, he did those things. He literally took away runs. Remember, he was in an era where we had some of the best pitching in baseball. One of the reasons we had the best pitching in baseball, because he was erasing runs by himself. Inning after inning, game after game, season after season. And you can't take that away. And then on top of that, yes, his average wasn't the greatest, but the man could hit the ball out the ballpark with the best of them. Right? So all of those, and besides just, again, catching the ball, he can get the ball back into that infield with the best of them as well. He had an arm, right? So you put all those things together, and that makes him one of the greatest outfielders of our time anyway, right? And he deserves it. Now, got one more, Dale Murphy, who should have been in there long time ago. So hopefully he gets an opportunity as well. So that's just a little baseball. I don't know what the Braves are going to do this season. We got a new manager finally. I feel that we held on to Snick 3 years too long after some questionable things over a period of time where the team that we had, I feel we should have been a lot further than we ended up being. And a lot of that was his not rotation so much, but his choice on how to use the bullpen, lineups a lot of times. I mean, I just remember how he changed your batting order near the end of one particular season after having a groove going on, and then all of a sudden he wanted to change it. It just messed up everything. And it carried over to the playoffs, and we got bounced. We had some really good rosters, and truthfully, we should have been to 3 World Series for that period of time, not just the one. Just saying. So I think we held on to him a little bit too long, and we got a lot of holes, obviously. We didn't have no real plan of action after getting rid of Dansby, which I agreed with that move. But to not have no plan to do something after him was crazy to me. A solid one, a real one, a legit one. Starting pitching has been not great because we just, I don't know. We can't find people who can stay healthy. Best ability is availability. We have not done that for a long period of time now. Being able to have depth, whether it be in the outfield or in the infield. We haven't had it. And then as far as their current players, what is Ozzie going to do this season? Right? Is Money Mike going to start the season good? Like, this whole excuse of, it's slow start and everything, that costs you a season. And Money Mike had been playing like he did the last half of the season, the Braves would have been a lot better. I'm not going to say they would have made the playoffs, but they would have been a lot better than they were. Right? What are we going to do with the Bear? Of course, Ronald will be back, and he'll probably be in MVP form again. I saw him hitting left the other day. I don't know if he's about to be a switch hitter. He hit a home run left-handed, though, so I don't know. But him being back definitely helps you out a lot. But we got some holes. I know we filled in a few, and it remains to be seen how they will play out. But spring training is just a month away, basically, y'all. Now, finally, the Hawks. Now, I do have part 2 of my series in regards to the departure of that former player that used to be a Hawk. I will be doing that show soon, but I do want to talk about the Hawks as of right now. They do have a 2-game winning streak. I've already said we need 8 more wins in a row. We need to win 10 games in a row, folks. 10 games in a row. Why? Because we need to be 5 games above 500 to try to keep pace with everybody else. Because everybody that's above the Hawks right now are either at 500 or above 500 right now. Okay? And the further we lose games, the further behind we're going to get. Okay? The Hawks have 25 losses already this season. And remember, that former player only played 10 of those games. We've lost 17 games without that former player. That's not good. We're 20-17. If we didn't have those 17 losses, we're a top 5-6 team in the East. But we did lose all those games. You see what I'm saying? So, again, we can't afford to lose any more games for a while. This game against Indiana is not a gimme. Somebody has said, well, we got some easy games coming up. No, not really. We barely beat Memphis. We had to hold on against the Suns. We did sweep the Suns, though. That's something. But we gave up 60 points in that game in the paint. 14 second chance points. 21 fast break points in that game. 21 turnovers in that game. The only saving grace in that game, we only took 26 threes in that game. That's, as far as I'm concerned, that's why we won. We didn't take 48 threes in that game and get blown out again. Proves that we can win a game without taking threes all game. You shouldn't take that many threes unless you can hit them at a certain rate. Person just was going to run over me. You shouldn't take threes that you can't hit. It doesn't make sense. So we need to beat Indy, who recently just beat the world champs. No, the Hawks didn't beat the world champs. We got swept by the world champs. Got blown out in both games. The most recent game, we gave up 141 points in one ball game against the world champs. And that was without that former player playing. So again, this whole thing about defense, that never was really an argument for me, because I could prove how that player wasn't the worst defensive player on the team. I can prove it by game film. I could prove it by defensive rating. I could prove it by plus minus every year. I could prove it. Okay? The other people who are supposed to be better at defense didn't play defense for some reason, and no one ever says anything about that. I've always been really interested in why people, make those assertions and then just don't care about the wing defenders on your team. How come they're not stopping people? Right? It's crazy to me. But we can see, obviously, it ain't that person, because otherwise, why do we have 17 losses? We should have 8 losses the entire season, and we don't. That's a huge deal. So let me get in. I'm at work now, so let me get in here. So be looking out for part 2, because part 2, I'm gonna continue breaking down the last 8 years of Hawks basketball. I'm gonna go back through some of the rosters from the last few years. Okay. I'm going to go through the last 22 games of the 2024 season. I'm also going to go through the last 10 games of that former player's career to show you what he did, what he did as compared to what you thought he did. And I'm going to show you what everybody else did around him as well, because it all matters. Everybody's supposed to do their jobs. And unfortunately, a lot of people were not doing their jobs. Okay? So I'm going to show you that. And then I'm going to talk about the future. We got the draft coming up. Looks like we might get multiple draft picks in this draft. Who might go after in free agency. Because like I said, we have to win a championship this year, next year, or the year after that to make anything make sense. Because if you don't win a championship within the next 3 years, then what were you talking about? Were you really even serious? We can't go 5 years from now and still not have a championship, can we? Jalen Johnson will be 29 years old, and that's if he's still a Hawk. Because maybe he'll ask for a trade eventually, right? You got to think about that. So if we don't win now, I demand that we win a championship now. If you saying that person was holding you back somehow, which is ludicrous, just based off what he did on the floor every night, okay, playoffs especially, then you get rid of him. You should be able to win every game. You should never lose again. You should never give up 130 points in a game, right? But we know that's not true because we know it happens. Let me get inside here. There are going to be people looking for me eventually. Make sure you subscribe to the IMT and Worldwide Radio YouTube channel, and I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.